My name is Gail Joseph. I grew up in India. I moved to the United States in 2015. I came here for a PhD program in energy and environmental systems. So I went to a university in Greensboro, North Carolina. I graduated in 2019, spring 2019, and I have been working at a cancer research facility in Durham. So, yes, and now I call Raleigh my home. I got married. Uh, I have a baby. So, this is pretty much home now. This is my new home. But I still continue my Indian Jewish traditions, even I've brought them along with me to the United States. So I'm going to be talking about some of these customs and as much as I can remember during this talk. So just so we all have an idea, Judaism is a very, very small part in India. 70% of the people are Hindus, and the 7% that you see is where I would put Judaism. There are a lot of people, at least when I was growing up in school, did not know who Jews were. So I had to tell them about Israel and tell them that okay, some of my descendants have come from there. So it was always challenging to explain some to somebody that yes, I am Jewish. And it's weird because when I came to America, everybody asked me how I was Jewish and if I was adopted, because people here had not heard of Jews in India, and people in India had also not heard of Jews. So I think it's like a constant battle. So India has 122 million, so most of us do not speak Hebrew. I have learned Hindi, which is a national language, and Marathi, which is a regional language. So people living in different states pick up their own regional languages. So it's very hard to communicate when there are people from different part of the countries together. We don't speak the common language, which I think is very interesting. Talking about the Jews, there are three major Jewish communities in India. I belong to the Bene Israel, which is Sons of Israel, which is on the west coast, close to or in Mumbai. Then there are, I don't know how to, okay. There are Jews who belong to the south of India, southern India. They are called the Cochin Jews or Cochini Jews. And then Jews from the east are the Baghdadi Jews. They also, there are some tales as to they have come from Baghdad. Now, how did the Jews get to India? This is the most interesting part because there are three different stories that no one can uh, attest. There is no written documentation to prove as to which one of the three stories is correct. So one of the first stories is that we are one of the last tribes who came. So one of the two last tribes that started wandering and settled down in India. The second one is once the after the first temple was destroyed, some of the Jews escaped and they came to India. And the third and the story that most of us believe is this is over 2,000 years back. There were these Jewish traders who were going to Southeast Asia for trade, and there was a shipwreck on the west coast of India. And these couples survived and decided to make India their home. So we are the descendant of these few couples who survived their shipwreck. And like I said, there is no evidence, there is no concrete evidence as to how we got there. But then this is how far back we can, it's one of these three stories that we believe in. Most of us believe in the shipwreck, that's how we exist. And the Jews, like both my parents are Jewish and we were always raised Jewish. I till date keep kosher because that's what I was taught. We do read our prayers. Everything is transliterated in Marathi, which is our regional language. Also, we follow the Orthodox customs where the men and the women sit separate. The women sit at the back in the galleries, and they are not usually a part of the services. Also, in India, as I mentioned, we did not face any anti Semitism, uh, maybe because a lot of people do not know we exist. Also, and then they intermarried, still maintaining the Jewish traditions and customs. And most of the synagogues that you will see in India are in Mumbai, and that's where I come from. Also, every synagogue has a meat or a slaughter house right next to it. So we have easy access to kosher meat. It's just that we don't, because in India, a cow is holy. So we don't eat, I have not grown up eating beef. But then, yes, we eat a lot of chicken and goat for all, like on Shabbat or on Jewish holidays. What did I miss out on anything? No. I just have notes on my side. Okay. So this is some statistics that I found out from 2001, wherein they said that there were just 5,000 Jewish people in India. And right now, the population of India is 1.3 billion. So it's a very, very small fraction. For example, this the most interesting statistic that I found and I really like is that there's among 250,000 Indians, there is one Jewish person, which is a very small fraction. But yes, there have been people, Jews, who have been in politics or in the movie industries, or there have been writers. This is one of the oldest synagogue that we have. No, I'm just in India. Oh, okay. This was built in 1796, and yes, it's a very small synagogue. Like I said, it was one of the first. So from all that was documented, this synagogue is the one that was documented as the very first. The Magen David Synagogue is also in Mumbai. It's built it was built in 1864. And other than outside Israel, this is one of the largest synagogue in Asia. And this is a pretty big synagogue, and it's one of my personal favorites because my parents got married at this synagogue. So in India, most of the weddings, or not most, all the weddings ceremonies take place inside the synagogue. And yeah, I mean, I had a beach wedding here in America, but if I was in India, I would definitely be getting married in the synagogue. This is a synagogue that I was a part of growing up until the time I could come to the US. The Shara Shamayim synagogue was literally like walking distance from home. I remember my mother choosing a house close to the synagogue so that we could be a part of the synagogue. I remember walking to synagogue every Shabbat on high holidays. So we had a very big community in India. It's just that now, because of people moving and migrating to Israel, some people move to other parts of the country and the world. The population in Mumbai and also in India is getting much smaller. We have a very, like the 2001 report said that there are 5,000 Jews. I think now it's even lesser than that. One of the most interesting factor is the way we say the Shema. Yes, we cover our eyes, but then we make the sign with, we join our our little finger and our thumb, and we make the sign Sheen, and that's how we cover our face and we say the Shema Israel. So when I moved to the United States in 2015, and the very first time I went to a shul in Greensboro, and when I looked around to see how people said Shema, and I found it different, the way they covered their eyes with their full palm, because I was so used to making this Sheen sign. and saying the Shema. So this is this was pretty fascinating for me because till date this is how I've been used to doing Shema. And I think now that I have a little girl, I'm going to be teaching her this way. So this is to give an example as to how we read prayers. So at the bottom is literally the prayer Shema Israel, but it is transliterated in Marathi, which is one of the regional languages. So all the prayers that we read for any occasions. So the ones who could not read Hebrew, this is what we read. A lot of our prayer books have been transliterated, and that's what we did. I mean, all the prayers take place in Hebrew. I was very amazed when I came to Bet Shalom and realized that there's some services in English, some in Hebrew, because at least somebody like me who doesn't know Hebrew, for me it was very encouraging and I could feel a part of it. But back home, because I was the female child, they would teach Hebrew only to the male child and not the female child. So I never learned Hebrew, sadly. So this is just an this is during, I don't it was his bar mitzvah, and this picture was taken during his bar mitzvah. As you can see, there are women who sit on the gallery at the top and do not participate in whatsoever. I remember it was my bat mitzvah, and I did not even enter uh, the sanctuary because I was an adult now, and I was kind of unholy because I'm an adult now who was menstruating. So they segregate women and men. And so I was literally standing at the door, and just then somebody else was reading the parasha on my behalf. And I was like, okay, I just had fun because I had a party at the end. So I didn't mind. But we've always seen this separation and segregation between men and women, which I was not always happy about, and I was always called the rebellious one because I was like, why am I not allowed to participate in services? And another thing was, we in India, before we enter the synagogue, we take our shoes off. We don't wear our shoes unless it's some occasion like a wedding or something. But then for Shabbat services or for high holidays, we wear our shoes in. Sorry, we do not wear our shoes in the synagogue, is to symbolize the time when Moses removed his footwear before he could approach the burning bush. So, just to symbolize that, we also take our shoes off before we enter the synagogue. Now, these are some customs and traditions I would like to talk about. So, this is called as a malida. I don't know from where they got the word Malida, but then every Indian Jew that you meet, if you ask them about Malida, this is what they would tell us. Malida is basically a thank you, or yeah, offering uh, thank you, or saying thank you to God for taking care of us. And it's for every happy occasions, be it housewarming ceremony or somebody's wedding or birthday, we always have the Malida. Malida is basically saying thank you to Prophet Elijah, uh, who is considered the savior of the Jewish community in India. So we also believe that it was him who saved these couples from the shipwreck, and who have always taken care of the Jewish people in India and kept them out of trouble. So we sing the Eliyahu Hanavi song for during every Malida. So it's so the main ingredient is flattened rice, and then we mix them with grated coconut and some sugar and some nuts, and then we mix it very well. And that is served with 7 different types of fruits. So 7 signifies those 7 couples who survived the shipwreck. So I'm also going to be talking about how we celebrated Shabbat and some festivals. So this is our typical Shabbat table at home. This is literally our table. at home. So we make the kiddush is basically made up of black raisins. So instead of having wine, which a lot of people would not want to drink wine, so we soak the black raisins overnight and then we extract the juice, and that is what we use for the kiddush. And then instead of challah, we use banana and dates. So the banana is for the hayats, and sorry, the banana is for the hadama, and the dates are for hayats. So these two, since these are not seasonal fruits and fruits found throughout the year, these two are the fruits that we use for every Shabbat. Also on Tisha B'Av, what so before we start fasting, it's a very typical custom which I thoroughly enjoyed as a child. Was we used to have this elaborate feast, and because we were supposed to start fasting soon. So as a tradition, we we ate on a banana leaf. The banana leaf is pretty long, and then we used to have all these different kinds of vegetables and fish and rice and lentils at like a huge spread on the banana leaf, just so we could eat enough so that we can start fasting. So that was a pretty fun tradition that we had back home. Also, the reason why banana leaf is because people in the southern part of India do eat on a banana leaf on certain occasions. So, being in India for so many years, we have kind of followed some of the Orthodox Jewish customs, but also mingled and accepted some of the local customs. For example, Purim falls on an Indian festival called Holi. They somehow, because of the calendars and the moon, these festivals always fall on the same day, or they fall close. So on Purim is when you have all the sweets. So in India, during Holi, people make some a certain type of sweet. Holi is an Indian festival where we throw colors and play with colors. So instead of making ham and passion, what we started doing is we started making these Indian sweets that people make, that Indians make for Holi. The Jews started making that for Purim. So the Indian Jews have started. We do not make the typical Jewish uh, items or recipes. We use or we make items that belong to the other Hindus or the Muslim communities, but then we have kind of made it our own and integrated that with our festival. Also, another interesting factor or interesting part that I've learned is a rabbi is very important in at a at the temple or at shul. But in India, we never had a rabbi. So for any big decision in life or to facilitate anything, we never depended on a rabbi. We always went and talked to our relatives or like somebody who's the head of the household. So it was very different when I see how it was. And even till date, the Jewish community in India doesn't have a rabbi. So there's always somebody who will volunteer and run the Shabbat services, or there'll be prayers. Like there'll be somebody who will volunteer. We have a Khazan who also who presides over the services for the high holidays, or has or officiates the weddings. Also, well, as I mentioned, we don't have any written traditions. These are just hand me down customs, but then we make sure that we celebrate Shabbat. We make sure that the male child is circumcised on the eighth day. And then we recite the Shema and on all occasions, because we believe that that is the most powerful prayer that you could ever have. On Rosh Hashanah, we make something known as Halwa. So this is made up of wheat extract, coconut milk, and sugar. And it looks like a pudding, or basically it's like an Indian pudding. So, but it's very traditional, or it's a typical Bene Israel custard or pudding. I think pudding is the right word. So we make this on Erev Rosh Hashanah, and then as a fun tradition, most of those people, once you finish the Erev Rosh Hashanah services, we distribute it amongst family and friends. So literally after services, you will find everybody out in the sanctuary, like giving each other boxes of halwa. And yeah, I remember coming back home and then tasting everybody's halwa. And I remember my mother's halwa was the best. So we would like always judge others' halwa while we were eating it, but we always liked ours the best. So this was fun. This was some really fun traditions that we had. This is the Hanukkah that has been passed down in my family for years or even centuries. No one knows who built it and when it was built, but it's we still use the oil lamps, and my apartment in India still has this Hanukkah. So we don't know if it was my great grandfather or it was my great great grandfather. Like I said, we don't know, but it's beautiful. We still have it on the wall, and we use it every year till date. It just a little bit here and there. It was before, it was on an asbestos sheet because people didn't know how bad asbestos was, but now it's sitting on a wooden sheet, and yeah, we have it. I i hope I can bring it to the US soon, but one of my it's with my sisters. But this is one of the most interesting piece that we have. It runs in our family. Weddings are fun everywhere. So this is actually my one of my best friends, Karen. It was her wedding. So Karen's wedding was a typical Jewish wedding. She it was it was the traditional arranged marriage where your parents find you a match. You don't go looking for a match. So arranged marriage is still very active in the community. It's something that it's normal in India also. So yes, so this was a day before the main wedding. You had the henna ceremony, wherein the bride has the henna all over her beautiful hands. So this is something very Bene Israeli, wherein the index finger is highlighted, or they put a lot of henna on just the index finger of the bride and the groom. So the reason why they put just a lot of henna on the index finger is here her index finger did not catch color. But then according to the Jewish ceremony, you put your wedding ring on your index finger, the right index finger. So to highlight that particular finger for the bride and the groom on the henna night, they apply henna on the index finger. So if you see his hand right here, his hand has caught more color. Like all his other fingers do not have henna. It's only the index fingers for both. So this is, believe it or not, I know Simon is the groom. I know he does not speak Hebrew at all, but he is reading Hebrew. So a lot of times during the weddings, we just don't know what's going on because it's all in Hebrew. Every single prayer that happens in India is in Hebrew. And yes, we just are just sitting there and watching the wedding. But we have people who train the groom to like practice and basically just rehearse whatever he is going to be singing. It's it's also a fun in tradition is when when the bride walks into the synagogue, we have the groom standing, and every Indian Jewish groom sings a song for the bride. He sings, I don't know the lyrics, but the name of the song is Nava Mikol. So he's basically praising his bride from head to toe. So he sings to her as she walks to him with her parents. So that's a very beautiful tradition. I was looking for a video to show, but I couldn't find that. But if I find it, I will share it. It's really beautiful when the groom is singing as the bride walks, and this has been going on for years. Even when my parents got married, mm, they had that ceremony. So it's a ritual that's been going on for such a long time. So yeah, this is the fun picture of us. That's we three are the sisters. This is at our house. This is my brother-in-law, and this is the last day of Hanukkah, where we just take a lot of pictures, and we, as a tradition, we invite a lot of my family and friends, especially my non-Jewish friends, who love coming home and being a part of the culture and customs that is so very different to them. So yeah, this is some fun stuff that we have. Another few points that I want to say is, in Mumbai especially, we have the American Jewish Joint Distribution Committee, the JDC, which is very active, and every year they send about two volunteers to India, and the volunteers create different programs and they teach Judaism, because we don't have Hebrew schools. We had Hebrew school once when the population was much more, but now that the population has reduced, we don't have Hebrew school anymore. So the JDC has actually, we have an office. We also and they teach Judaism. They take us out for summer camps and introduce us to a bunch of uh, Jewish activities. So I have always, since I was a child, my mom always encouraged me to be a part of the JDC camps or camps organized at the synagogue during summer. So I that's why I was always more inclined and a little more religious, and maybe that's the reason why I still keep kosher, is because that's few things are still like instilled in me, and they're like, I don't think I can eat anything other than that. Also, we have some schools, like I mentioned in the past, which where we had Torah classes as part of the curriculum, and even Hebrew was a part of the curriculum. But that doesn't have we don't have that anymore. Also, we don't have a rabbinical studies center in India. So if anybody wants to be a rabbi, then they go to Israel, and that's how they learn. Another part is, we one state on the east, we had a group. There was another fourth group of Jews called the Bene Menashe or Ben Menashes. They lived in northeast India, and in 2008 or a little earlier, that everybody from that state migrated to Israel. So there's almost nobody belonging to the Ben Menashe community in India as of now. So, and like I mentioned before, all the prayers are recited in Hebrew, and majority of the Indian Jewish community cannot speak Hebrew. For the male child, for the bar mitzvah, they do train the male child, and I have friends who personally can read Hebrew, but they do not understand a single word that they read, because they are only taught to recognize the alphabet and read it. A lot of people do not know what the words mean. So yeah, it's a little different. Then during the weddings, we have the kupa, the Shiva Barakot, and then the glass breaking, which are some of the common customs that all the Jews across the world have. So also, we make sure that we follow the kosher laws. So even during festivals and high holidays, we make sure that we don't mix meat and milk. Though we don't eat beef, but a lot of times, like the halwa that we eat for Rosh Hashanah, it has coconut milk. It doesn't have dairy. so that even if you want to eat it with meat, you can eat it. So a lot of these small customs have, we pay a lot of attention to these small customs, and that's, I'm hoping that in the future I am going to pass down some of these Indian Jewish customs to, now I have a baby, but then yeah, maybe some more kids that I have, I'm going to just keep passing it on. And like I mentioned, uh, Prophet Elijah, once again, I will say, is the guardian of the community. And for even in Israel, there's a group, there are a lot of Indian Jews in Israel who've migrated over the years. And even in Israel, people still continue to have the Malida and pray and respect Prophet Elijah. And it's amazing how even after so many years we still carry the same traditions and customs that we have had in the past. So yes, I think I'm open to taking questions. I think this is all I can think of as of now.
Fantastic. If anyone has a question, they can unmute themselves and feel free to ask. Don't all ask at once.
Gail, I have a question.
Yes, Rebecca.
I'm just curious because of how you grew up with the bat mitzvah, and I can't remember if you had told me this before. Are you thinking of doing an adult bat mitzvah where you can actually read from the Torah?
Maybe someday. I wouldn't mind. Yeah, because like I said, I was just literally standing at the door and just didn't know what was going on.
You interact with any others, Indians, Indian Americans, or
Sorry, could you say that again?
do you interact with any other Indian Americans?
Yes, I do. In fact, at work, three of my colleagues are they've been born like they're first generation Americans. Like their parents moved to the US and they were born in India. Sorry, they were born in the US. So yes, I do have. Even my husband has a bunch of friends who are from India or are first generation Americans.
We were in India last year, and we actually went, to the 5 temples that were 7 that are in a row in Mumbai. And Cochin, and we went to Jewtown.
Yes.
And we went to the cemetery, and it was sad because you had all these beautiful temples, but nobody went to them because the last person was a woman who celebrated all the Jewish religions, and she died last year.
Yes.
But yeah, we were there. It was we never met any Indian people while we were there because we didn't see any.
Mm-hmm.
All the temples were closed and they just let us in.
They were museums now.
Yeah, they're museums.
Yes. In Cochin, yes, the number of Jewish people in Cochin is almost 0. But in Mumbai, we still have a thriving population. Like
we started out in Mumbai, but the Jewish trips that we went on were in Cochin. Okay. We didn't do any of the Mumbai Jewish areas.
Okay, maybe next.
We were on a cruise that started in Mumbai.
Okay.
Do you live in the Raleigh area?
Yes.
Oh, good. Are you a member of our synagogue?
Of course.
Of course.
Look at Ed saying, of course.
Of course, one of my recruits.
Yes, I'm Ed's recruit.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Yes, in Cochin they have this street called Jewtown, where all the names of streets are Jewish.
And the stores are all Jewish.
The stores are all have Hebrew writing and everything, but there's no Jews there.
No.
So who takes care of that now? There are merchants that sell at these places, but it's all Jews Jewish
to the
language
tourists.
and Jewish writings and everything. It's really weird.
Yes. So yes, I mean, many years back, that Jew town was filled with Jews, but then once Israel made it so easy to migrate, a lot of people made Aliyah, and now there's hardly anybody there. Like even in Mumbai, I'm surprised to see, like in 2018, when I went home, I was surprised to see a lot of my friends had either moved. I shouldn't complain because I myself moved to the US, but then yeah, they moved to Israel or they moved to other parts of the world. It's just better opportunity and people move, which is a little sad. I want the Jewish existence to still remain in India. My two sisters still live in India, so I'm hopeful.
Still has two sisters in India.
Go ahead, Erica.
Yes, you explained to us that you felt that the Jews came to India there was a shipwreck.
Yes,
When did they think that this happened?
one of them said 175 AD, but like I said, there is no documented evidence of this.
Right, AD.
Yes.
Wow,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it's like I said, there's no documentation anywhere. There's no concrete proof anywhere. In fact, in between, there was also a study done to see that if we were one of the lost tribes, and they also took DNA to check for some genetic evidence, and then that theory went down the drain. Nothing happened. So these are just hand me down and stories that were told by one generation to the other. So there's no proof.
Interesting.
I know Rebecca had a question that she put into the chat.
Oh,
Rebecca,
wonderful.
do you want to ask that, or has it been answered?
I think it was someone answered, but I'll ask it just in case. So what I was trying to find out, and I think you somewhat answered this, like I said, was that if women were forbidden from using Hebrew or just from learning to read it, and were they singing the prayers in their local language while the men were singing in Hebrew? So I'm just kind of confused about that.
Oh, I mean, we were never taught because we were not allowed to participate. So nobody took the initiative of teaching if you were not allowed to participate in any of the services. So like for my own bat mitzvah, nobody taught me anything because they are like, oh, she's not going to be reading any which ways. So there are some women who said, no, I want to learn, and they have learned, but I never learned because nobody took the initiative of teaching. And I was like, I'm going to learn, and do what when I was not allowed to participate in any services because I was a woman.
So the women just sit there basically quietly. Oh,
Yes. Which is not very nice. It's not a good feeling.
Yes, Janet? You're muted, Janet. Janet, you're muted. Lower left.
I have it. Okay. Traditionally, the friends that I have had over the years that are from India, all of their marriages have been arranged for them. And they expect to do the same for their children here in the United States. I don't think it's going to happen, particularly now that they're teenagers and growing up. But I wondered whether or not it was traditional and within the Jewish communities also.
It is. So the pictures that I showed of my friend, that was an arranged marriage. My parents had an arranged marriage. I did not.
Do the same rules apply? The caste system, and
Yes.
Okay.
So I remember so we have the Bene Israelis, and I remember some years back, a Bene Israeli girl was getting married to a guy from Cochin. And it was like a big thing. It was like in the news. It was like a big thing because it was like nobody had done this. Everybody, if you belong to the Bene Israel community, you marry within the Bene Israel community. So yeah, now that couple migrated to Israel and they have kids of their own. But yeah.
little biodiversity.
Yes.
Jeff Tabor asked, is there Chabad in India?
Yes,
in
there
the
is. There's one in Mumbai. And in 2008 November, there were attacks in Mumbai. There were these terrorist attacks, and that was the first time we ever had something like this. And yes, the Chabad was also attacked, and it's still existing. I don't know who the rabbi is, but during Hanukkah, they light up the big Hanukkah just like we have it here in Apex. We have something similar in Mumbai, and the Chabad does that. So I think it's very nice because I think it's very encouraging and educational to people, and making them aware of the Jewish community in India as well. So yeah.
A quick comment and a question. The comment is that in the medieval Spanish community from Spain, right, in the 12th century. So there's a man called it's a guy from Tudela, from a town in Spain, and he traveled and he wrote a book, memoirs of his traveling, and he traveled all the way from Spain to India and even into China, and the way Jews used to travel and the Silk Road, right? That was, there was lots of Jewish commerce and trade in the early medieval period. And Jews were particularly doing that because they could always go kind of from one community to the next. And they always arrive at a place where they can network and they have somebody they know. And actually Maimonides, the famous Maimonides, he had an older brother that went on a business trip to India on a ship, and there was a shipwreck and he died. And we know because that's when Maimonides had to start working as a doctor to support the family because the brother was supporting them. So Jewish communities in India and shipwreck and all that, to me it sounds, not surprising. And my question, I had a question. So when you talk, Gail, to other Indian people, either here or if you're in India, and at some point it comes out that, I don't know, you don't go to a Hindu temple and you're Jewish, what's the reaction?
So most of them were like, oh, who are Jews? And like, what's a synagogue? It was stuff like that. So yeah, it used to be very frustrating as a child to explain. And I remember I used to come home and I used to ask my mom, like, how do I explain? Or it's like, I was like, are we weird? Like, why is that nobody knows who Jews are? I thought that something was different but then my mom made me understand. And then likewise, I had to make them understand that I guess we are Jews. But then my friends, there were times that my friends knew who Jews were, because then I had taken them to the synagogue and I showed them around, and we invited them for some of the holidays, like on Hanukkah, we invited them over to light the candle with us. So I think that way, at least I got my friends educated, and then hopefully they kind of educated maybe 2 or 3 people more. So yeah, it used to be a little annoying, to be very honest, and a little frustrating, because I'm like, I would like to be recognized as a Jew. So I remember when I was in college, I used to wear these big neck pendants with a big Magen David that I used to get from Israel, just to flaunt that I'm Jewish. So yeah.
John has joined us. He was having Wi-Fi and computer problems. He apologizes,
Oh, no problem.
but I did want to let everyone know he is here with us. But Rebecca had one other question, which was, in light of the Orthodox tradition, has a more progressive form of Judaism started to at all appear or influence any synagogue or community within India?
Nope, I don't think so. That's going to change. It's
Rebecca, I guess you'll have to go there and
yeah,
be a rebel and start a rise up in Jewtown, which to me sounds derogatory almost to say. So, but I know it is not. Are there any other questions? Because I know it's 7:55 almost, and I don't want to. I can't see everyone that don't have their faces online, if they're raising hands or not. But if you have a question, unmute yourself and please ask Gail or
Jason.
Janet.
Jason,
Yeah, I
I
would
thought I
just-
saw Mike have a question. I thought I saw Mike have a question earlier on chat.
I just had one question, yes. So in Jewish communities in India, are people given Hebrew names, either at birth or at the age of bar mitzvah?
At birth. So
At birth,
we
they have a
all-
Hebrew
yeah.
name.
And then we don't, like how we have you have your own name and then you have an Hebrew name. It's not like that in India. It's just, you just have one name. Like my sister's name is Esther. My name is Gail, which is just Gail, and no other name. My dad's name was Sasun. So yeah, we were just given these Hebrew names, some English names, and that's how it was.
Okay, thank you very much, Gail.
Janet?
Yeah, I would just love to have some recipes. Even the pudding recipe that I would love to have shared with.
Sure, I put two. I gave two for the cookbook, but yeah,
Yay.
I can share
Great.
more.
Perfect. Well, unless there's any other questions, John, I'm going to toss it back to you for the final wrap up.
Thank you, Jason, very much for interceding on my behalf as I was having technology problems. One of the problems of living in the southern part of Garner is the Wi-Fi, the internet is not as stable as it is in other places like Cary and Apex and all. But Gail, thank you very much for offering to speak with us and then also doing it and putting up with my email barrage at times, getting more information and everything. So I think everybody did a great job. You provided us a lot of good information in writing that I was able to work with Shane on and promote this opportunity, this event, and then showing up tonight. And again, Jason, thank you very much for taking my place and helping out when I couldn't get the bits and bytes to
The
work.
tribe is here for you.
Awesome. And again, technology is awesome when it works. When it doesn't, it is frustrating beyond belief.
Thank you, Gail.
Yeah, but thank
This
you
is so
very
great.
much,
Thank you
Gail.
so much.
Thank you,
Welcome.
Gail.
Welcome to our congregation. Welcome. We're looking forward to seeing you in person and meeting your daughter and your husband.
Thank you. Yes,
Don't
I
want to
have
forget him.
her-
The dad
Yeah.
is in there somewhere.
Yeah,
I want
Louis.
to have her naming ceremony at the temple, so I'm waiting.
Oh, very nice. Yes, that'll be great.
As soon as the temple opens its door, I'm going to come running with my child.
Very soon, very soon.
Louis and
Yes,
Louis.
and we look forward
Yes,
to seeing and
and
meeting you and your family in person.
Remember
Sure.
said very soon?
Thank you so much.
We said
Thank
very
you. This
soon.
is
It was
great.
lovely.
Good
Thank
evening,
you.
everyone, or
Thank
good
you.
night, and thanks for
Thank you,
joining.
Gail.
Thank you, Gail.
Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Gail.
you.
Nice
Thank
to
you.
meet you.
Be
Thank
well
you very
all.
much.
Good night.